All right, you guys, we are going native today. Well, native and Florida friendly. So today's garden tour is in Melbourne, Florida. This is a 70% all native garden and the remaining is Florida friendly. This is an HOA requirement for this particular community, so it really put me to the test, but more importantly, it's gonna answer that question. Can native plants, can a native entire yard really look beautiful long-term? I get this question often, why don't you use more native material within your gardens? And I do some. However, in most cases of my professional landscape career, native material has a tendency to really get overrun, and a lot of my designs are full and lush, so incorporating something like that can be a little bit challenging. But life happens, and in this particular community, they were like, hey, it's got to be done. So my particular clients that I'm working with on this project, I'd worked with them on a previous project with their home, and they like very clean lines, very tropical, lush, but clean lines. So I am really happy with how this has turned out. Let's start off with the island directly behind me. We really wanted to anchor this large house with some big trees. Now these right here are Florida Royals, and I think they're absolutely stunning for this front. They're really going to give us that kind of height quickly. And of course, as you guys know, they grow quite tall, up into that 40-foot range. So they're really going to take off and kind of really frame the corners of this, quite large house. So if you have a two-story, Royal Palms are ideal. If you have a single story and it's kind of on the smaller side, I tend to go more with foxtails or King Alexanders or regular Alexanders for that. But because we had so much grandness with this particular house and all of this paver and hardscape, Florida Royals were ideal because they're really going to be able to handle that cold temper just a little bit better. This little guy right here, which I think is super cute, super compact. This is an Aracuri palm. So it is a Florida friendly palm, very, very drought tolerant, very, very tough for a little tree, and maxes out around 15 to 16 foot tall. So it doesn't get quite large. This is always going to be a nice understory tree. As you walk your way up to the landscape, it's going to be a nice intermediate kind of feel with its kind of cascading umbrella feel. So I think that's really cool. But as for some of the smaller native plants in this little bed, we've got right from this beginning here, these have become a fan favorite for me just because of this gorgeous white flower on it. These are viburnum. They're called Mrs. Schiller's. They're the dwarf variety, and they offer this real compact shape. And what's great about these, if you don't get in here to trim heavily, that's okay, because these guys stay small, they stay compact, really, really easy to care for. And I like anything that stays chunky and where you put it for any period of time without you having to do that for it. So I think they're ideal. I've really used them as a great framing tool. So I've used them as my kind of my border. They're going to be a dark green border. They bloom all spring, all summer, and it looks like pretty much into fall, depending on your area of Florida that you're in, but they can handle temps well below freezing. They can go all the way to that Jacksonville area. So those of you guys who are looking for a nice, clean, native, compact group planting, these are gonna be ideal, coming in about this size, really chunking out to about this size and becoming a nice swath of a very controlled, almost like a natural soft boxwood type of look. I've got a break with the boulder, and then I have them kind of curving up into the bed there. So we keep that kind of dark line, and you'll notice anywhere I put a dark line, if I can't do something bright, I find something with a little bit of color. So these are native purslanes. They're the pink variety, and they're going to kind of give us a break in this darkness here, kind of framing this boulder and giving us a little bit of interest. And then we've continued on with the Mrs. Schiller's viburnum. Right here, which you guys are probably quickly guessing is one of my new favorite accents. This is the Yucca rostrata. It is a Florida-friendly plant, beautiful drought-tolerant accent, can handle those cold temperatures all the way up north into Jacksonville. This little tree can do really, really well. Once it matures out, it grows into a really cool stem. This is perfect if you guys want to keep it something really interesting and uniform in a pot. I've had designs where I have a long, narrow space and a client wants something pretty dynamic on a wall, and I put these tall tubular pots and framing them with 3 of these kind of coming up the walkway. absolutely gorgeous because it's very easy to get these to match one another, where other agaves, it can be really hard to get them to grow in a pattern. So these guys are just a great punch of color. I love their silver tone to them. Just kind of looks really, really unique, and I think it's going to fit in so well. I have one on this side of the driveway, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I have one on the opposite side of the driveway. So it looks like as these guys grow in together, they'll frame each end of the driveway really, really nice. To the back, I have some Weigela or daisy carpet flowers. These are very aggressive growers. They're going to really kind of give us a swath of about 1.5 to 2 foot of ground cover, beautiful coloring. These bloom that yellow daisy-like look, really, really tough. Can handle if you guys have rabbit problems. The rabbits tend to leave these guys alone. They're really a perfect ground cover. They do need room to spread, so I wouldn't put like 2 and then a bunch of plants near them, and then 2 and a bunch of plants near them. I would give them their own space. So I usually create like a little swath with those. I want them to be a backdrop of yellow here, pink up here, and then framing the sides over here with the greens. So that way we have a really good sandwich effect of like a pop of color when everything matures and grows slowly. I think I mentioned you guys that this is a very young landscape. We literally just finished yesterday. Back here is a native silver buttonwood. And you'll notice that anytime I bring in one silver thing, especially if I have a lot of greens, silver can be a color that can really contrast against those greens. We're doing greens, reds, silvers, and yellows because it really just kind of blends in so nicely with lights and darks. So this is going to kind of create a hedge along this curved walkway path here, really giving us a bright spot as when you're looking from the road, you get the reds of the dwarf ixoras and the dark greens and white tones of the Mrs. Schiller's viburnum. And then of course the yellows and the pinks. I think it's just all going to really, really come together really nice. So this is going to be a fantastic little grouping for some pollinators, especially when you consider these dwarf Little Psycho coffee plants. So these are more the compact version. A lot of times you'll see this variety big and wild and crazy. Those bloom a beautiful big cherry kind of berry. This is one of my favorites because this can stay compact, it can stay lush, it can stay thick, and I tend to use this underneath a tree planting just like you see here. They do need a little protection from the sun. However, when they're in this grouping, they're just going to fluff out like this and become a nice 4-foot backdrop, almost like a circular light coloration of green. And we've got the dark greens here that are going to be real dark. We've got a little bit of that chartreuse green in these guys. And then of course we have the dark green and orange to the front of the dwarf ixoras. So that's going to be the framework for our silver Bismarck as everything really grows in. So I hope that comes together. And you guys will notice when I'm kind of creating these plans to put them together, anytime that I'm working with a tall grouping of palm trees, I really want to make sure to stagger them. Look, we have like a triangular formation of these royals here. And then of course it leaves us open for a centerpiece. So this centerpiece can be a blooming tree. This can be a statement palm. It can be anything along those lines. My client had a beautiful large Bismarck in his backyard from his previous house that we did. And so he wanted to replicate that with another Bismarck, but in the front yard this time. So we found the perfect spot for a Bismarck as the centerpiece amongst these royals. You do want to make sure though, if you're going to choose a Bismarck, you don't want your larger trees to be something like King Alexander's or something that's going to stop growing at a small rate. Because these royal palms get so big, it really opened up the gate to whatever kind of centerpiece tree that I wanted to use. This tree can get 30 foot tall and always still be the understory tree to these big palms. If you want something that's going to be like a bottle brush or something that's going to only grow to 10 to 12 foot, then you could use King Alexander's as your frame trees or foxtail palms or anything along those lines, because you don't have to worry about that kind of height competing with each other. This will always be a layered effect. These guys will get tall, this will get less tall, and that little guy up front there will get less tall, lesser tall. So, so it becomes kind of that waterfall pattern that you're looking for. Over here, we have a nice kind of small planting bed, but still a little bit of power going on here. We're working with silvers, we're working with natives, and I love the silver buttonwood tree. I wish you guys can feel it's like a velvet leaf. This texture on this leaf is just so gorgeous. Really brings in the birds, really a nice feature in the garden. And it's a hardwood tree that you guys, we can keep like this forever. You can keep it sheared almost like a topiary effect. It can be this small or it can be much, much larger. So depends on your space, but it's willing to work in any area. It's like the perfect roommate. It's gonna go where you put it. So this is a beautiful, soft, subtle tree. And then you notice that we have some silvers that it's bouncing off of. Silver buttonwood behind us, the silver Bismarck behind us, and of course the silver Yucca rostrata to the front. When everything grows in together and everything gets really large, that's when those colors really pop. I just cannot wait for that to happen. Down below the silver buttonwood, this is Anise ocala. This is a beautiful, lush little bush. Now this bush you can keep at 4 to 5 foot tall, really fill in this whole corner area, cover up these pipes that it's covering here. Gorgeous Florida native. This variety of anise comes in the ocala variety, as well as the Florida, which is a little bit more yellow in color. They have kind of a licorice kind of fragrance to them. I just think they're really, really cool. They kind of have a nice dotted area of yellow flowers and just really, really bring in the birds. So if you just kind of need something to kind of fill in an area, but you want to make sure that you stay native, you want to make sure that you can stay with a cold tolerant, tough, can handle the heat, can handle all the combinations of a sustainable landscape, then these guys are great. They're a perfect filler plant. Group them together. It's a nice ideal way to do it. Everything that we have here is more on the vertical side. We've got the blueberry trees that they're going to allow to get about 3 foot taller, kind of coming up this wall here and then stopping. So we're framing the window line with these blueberry trees. These are Japanese blueberries. They're not edible blueberries. It's a Florida friendly plant, not necessarily a native, but it is great for the birds. They nest in here commonly. Half the time when I'm picking them up from the nursery, they have an old nest in there. So they nest in these guys quite early, but they become such a cool look. They get a little bit of red tips to the end of it during fall. So it kind of gives you a little bit of that color change, which I think is so charming. But what I do like about them is you can keep them this size forever, for their whole lifespan, if that's what you choose. You can keep them whatever size that really fits your space. So if your wall is a little bit short, a lot of us have these little nooks on the insets near our front doors. If you've got that going on, these guys are great to keep kind of vertical. They can handle our heat. They can handle our cold. What they don't like is full shade. So anything besides full shade, they can handle. Sun, partial sun, baking right off of the concrete, they're champs. So Japanese blueberry trees are one of my go-tos because you can keep them the size and the style that you want them to be. So they're almost considered like a softer version of a topiary, more natural. Across the front of these guys, just to lighten it up, I've got some golden dews, some gold mounds, and they're just gonna kind of fill in as a very tight hedge underneath this Florida thatch palm. So this Florida thatch palm grows very slow. It's the little bit that's the wild and crazy and a little floppy that's gonna go here because we do have some framework on either side. We've got some very controlled plants to the front with the dwarf ixoras and the gold mounds. Why not jazz it up with a little bit of wild with the thatch palm? So this gave us our native touch to this spot, as well as our dwarf coffee plants to the back. So they're gonna get bushy and lush and about 4 foot to the back and really kind of give us that tiering effect. So 4 foot to 2 foot to around 2 to 2.5 foot to back up to 4 to 5 foot. You can kind of see how that pattern goes all with vertical things in between those. This bed is majority all native. We used a lot of these Miss Schillers. Just kind of, you can see how I started. I have a dark frame here, then I have them curved to the back side here, and then they swoop forward. And what they're doing is they're framing this needle palm right to the front. So this needle palm kind of gives you a look a little bit like a lady palm or a rhapis palm, but it grows exceptionally slow. It mounds out to kind of more of a bush tree, and what a unique kind of cool fingered kind of look I think that attracts. So this will not spread, it will not kind of take over this whole space. This is a petite, a small, a dwarf tree, so it kind of gives a little bit of a slash between a Perotis and a rhapis palm without the negatives of what Perotis offer, which means that they can kind of take over a spot. We chose to work with the coquina boulders and then kind of soften them with yellow lantana. So these yellow lantanas are going to fold over top of this boulder, and then right to the front are going to be those native purslanes that are going to kind of droop to the front. So that's going to really give you a really nice look. And I love how it gives such a softness to this gray granite stone. I love using gray granite. It's going to pack down really well, especially since we kind of have some moundy areas here where this slopes into the sidewalk. This granite's going to hold this area super well. Then we have a small centerpiece of a European fan palm. This, guys, you guys know, grows slow. We've had European fan palms recently in a lot of videos. This is kind of what their natural look is when they're very young. They grow into beautiful specimens as they get older. This one has 4 or 5 trunks, so once that happens, those trunks are going to be showstoppers as they get bigger. Right to the front of this guy is going to be a cool large coquina boulder, and then again, we did the frame work that we've kind of followed through, which we took the yellow lantanas and the purslanes, or portulacas, depends on what you guys call them. And just so we didn't get too formal, we went with some mammy crotons. We do need this area to stay nice and low. That's why we have a lot of low material here. But these mammy crotons will get into that 2 to 3 foot size, but offer a bunch of bright tones of color as they mature. They can handle the heat off of the rock and the heat off of the driveway and still give color and impact. So that's going to be our swath. And we only have 9 of these guys, just kind of a backdrop of curves. So when they really grow in, they're going to be like this and just connect together as a nice pop of color amongst these greens, and then softened it with a little bit of flowers to the front. So that way you kind of have the best of both worlds in this area. And then that's how we finished it off, you guys. We have now started another swath, and it wraps around, framing the needle palm, and then ends, tapers down by this boulder, showcasing the boulder yet again. So this wall right here, you can tell that we have a lot of weight from the house in the center, and over on this side here, we wanted to really balance this out. So we have a similar bed over here of royal palms, and just kind of a nice bit of impact, choosing some really nice ligustrums. These are going to be tree type ligustrums. I love that grapevine-y kind of look as they really mature out. I think they're going to be gorgeous. My client really likes them to kind of be rounded like a mushroom, flat on the bottom. Some people like them more wild, more loose like a tree. Either way, they always have that cool grapevine-y trunk, so it kind of really gives an interesting look to this front of this house. So a little bit of chunk on the sides. We kept it low in front of this window. They definitely wanted to see out, so all we have here is some gold dust crotons, which are Florida friendly, some teeny tiny foxtail ferns that are really little right now, but are really going to do a nice job of softening between these two plant groupings here. Some golden dews that along to the front. And then this is a spot that I had mentioned about the dwarf yucca rostrata here. So we have this flanking the other entrance of the driveway around a boulder. I just love this way this looks. I just cannot wait to see these guys with a little bit of trunk popping out on either side of the driveway as you're coming up and then as you're leaving the house. I just think that's going to be gorgeous. Again, we kept a similar feel with the portulacas right down below the boulder, and then started the swath of color. We've got some Florida friendly dwarf ixoras coming across the front. To the back, we have some native dwarf coffee plants. And they just give you that shiny, kind of chunky leaf. I love that way they look. And then right here on this blank wall, we needed something a little bit higher, because you guys know how I love it to go high, low, high, low. And this is a grouping that's going to kind of give us a little bit of a raise on this wall. So it's going to give us a little bit of thickness. And then I don't know if you can see directly behind me, hopefully as that tree opens up to the back, that pink powder puff tree will be part of the front yard landscape, because it's kind of like a window when you look from the street. That way, seeing all of that beautiful soft green with those gorgeous, gorgeous powder puff pink blooms. And then we drop right back down to these chunky dwarf coffee plants. So you can tell we're going to get tons of bird traffic here. I cannot wait for that to happen. It's just going to be so cool to see. Yellow lantanas framing the boulders, and then our centerpiece on this particular side is also a silvery toned tree. Now this tree will get more and more silver the older it gets, but this is a pindo palm. It's very young. It was a 25-gallon palm tree when we put it in, and it's going to really get some great size to it. They do grow kind of slow, but what I do like about their formation is they kind of have a nice tight crown in the center, and they do this kind of like a fountain does. So I think that's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I have the trees out wide enough to where this canopy is going to curl over into this tree trunk, and this one will curl over into that tree trunk, and really kind of frame the inside of this as this tree gets a little bit larger. Oh, and I did forget to mention the Buda edging. Now I know the edging doesn't show up great without grass in it, but this Buda edging, I feel like it fits in so well with this house. This is the first time I've used the charcoal other than a sponge spot in my own garden where I had the charcoal as kind of like a test. I wanted to see how it looked. I love the way it looks with all the black and dark trim that the house has. I think it ties in so perfectly. And then the dark kind of trim that they have on the pavers really kind of comes together. And then I know that it's gonna do what it needs to do. These mowers in this community are like all other mowers where they come in quickly, run through. Weed eaters hit these guys. So I know that not only is my landscaping going to be sustainable, but this Viera edging is going to hold up to that kind of traffic, those big tires running over top of it, those weed eaters slapping and hitting it, and this is not going to scuff at all. This is going to be a perfect, nice little edge line. Viera says that you do not have to dig these in at all, and you don't. You can literally set the edging on top of the grass and hammer the nail in, and it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly stable at that point. I like personally the way it looks. If you can take a little bit of a shovel and dig a couple inches out. It doesn't have to be anything major, but a couple inches out. The best shovel to use for that is a sprinkler shovel because it's long and narrow, and you can literally, after your line is drawn, you can just go through and dig 2 inches out, set this edging in, and voila, it looks like it's inset into the ground. I even do that with my boulders. I inset the edges of my boulders into the ground because I like that look. It doesn't look like something set on top of anything. I like everything to be inset and really have a place in the gardens. Just a little bit of tidbit on that. But let's continue on with the tour. These back here are native firebush. Now, a lot of my videos showcase regular dwarf firebush. They will get big, but you can keep them smaller. These guys have a mind of their own. They are not going to stay the size that you want them to stay just because, you know, you want them to stay there. These guys are going to naturally get 6 to 7 foot tall as this backdrop. Now, my clients are aware of this. This is the main reason why I don't always use the native variety. However, if you're going to use it as the wall of your landscape. Use it as the backdrop. So we have got in this bed, we've got yellow blooming flowers. We've got yellow golden dew. We've got the dark coloring of the chartreuse coffee plants. We've got the dwarf ixoras to the front. That's all beautiful right now, but once we can hem this in where everything's grown in together, these are gonna be a wall of these beautiful blooms that bloom almost all year long because they're native. You're gonna have this gorgeous backdrop of a 6 foot wall of this kind of coloring that's gonna really kind of bring all of those colors out in the front. So if you have to use these guys somewhere, or you want to use these guys somewhere, because they really bring in the hummingbirds, they really bring in all the birds. If you're wanting butterflies, these guys are gonna be your go-to. Just make sure that they're not in the front of your garden. They're in an area that you're prepared for them to get bushy and full and tall. So let's move on to the side here. There were some challenges with this particular side. Those of you guys who live in close neighborhoods, you're probably facing some of those same challenges, which is property. In this particular house, even though that it feels like this yard has some expanse to it, it has some size to it, we had restrictions of staying 10 foot off of the property line, along the side of the yard. Really had to be cautious about really spreading gardens out. I really do like to create big wavy gardens. That way, you know, you can really kind of allow things to fill out. You have plenty of room for it. But in this particular garden, every part of it was compact. However, I know my clients, which are also my friends, they want big impacts. It was a challenge to make sure that we had both. So if you guys are in that boat, then you know what HOAs, how they can restrict you. So we really had to tighten some things up and really push some things close to the house on this, like this powder puff tree. This powder puff tree, personally, I would love to see it out here more as a backdrop, but it does allow us to see it as part of the front bed from the road. So it does work well. They're just gonna have to keep it maintained, because if you guys know about powder puff trees, almost give you that Asian style, which is ideal because they'll flatten out at the bottom, really push out on the ends, and kind of give you kind of a mushroom effect to the top. So they're a gorgeous tree to work with. This one maybe has a bloom or two left from transplants, but not a whole lot. It's going to really flush out, gives you all summer color, and beautiful for the birds. So a very Florida friendly tree, can handle so many different climates, and it's just going to really take over this side, hence why we don't have anything else around it. It's a tree that's really going to do its own job. We have the Ocala anise on either side. These we're going to allow to grow into little trees on this side, maybe clean up the trunk a little bit and let them fill in above the wall line. And then of course the silver buttonwood tree is also another Florida native, and just a little dash of the Welter's viburnum, Mrs. Schiller's at the bottom. Now this particular side, we were limited to being a 6-foot bed. If you guys can see over to the side here, what the view line is that my clients are dealing with. We'll walk inside and really let you see that. But really, as soon as this house was built, I mean, it literally looks like it was a part of this house. It's that close. So we came in with some 45-gallon fishtail palms, and we had to put them close to the house. So these fishtail palms are about 10 foot tall. They're really gonna fill in this space. Yes, when you put fishtail palms 6 foot off the house, you are going to have to trim those trunks closest to the house, because you're going to want to make sure that they kind of grow out more towards the rear end of the property versus along the house. But it's a totally doable thing. I've seen fishtail palms put in pool planters that are 3 foot wide and produce beautifully. So you can absolutely do it if that's a question on your mind right now. These are going to become a great wall as the pool backdrop here, which is also going to do a great job of getting rid of this giant second story right next to them within feet of their biggest entertaining space that they have. So they're going to create a great wall there. So they've got room to grow in, and just a little bit of maintenance for my clients to really get in there and do that trimming. Now that is absolutely doable. They're going to grow about 2 to 3 foot per year and really kind of give them some size. So they want to feel like when they do walk back here, what they see are two things. They want to see a beautiful garden, fronds galore over on one side, and feel like they're not in a neighborhood. And the next thing they want to see is this remainder of this beautiful little lake that they're sitting on, so that way they can enjoy it fully and not have to worry about, feeling like, they're up close and personal with any neighbors. So that's going to be one of the better parts of this natural landscape. Right here we have a 15-gallon gorgeous false agave that we brought in. We put it on a little bit of a hill, kind of looks crazy here, but from inside I wanted you to be able to see not only the false agave but the boulders. So we raised this area up a little bit so that way you can see that, and then did some beautiful little yellow lantana carpet flowers for this bottom. This is the chunkier variety. The ones in the front are one of the ones that are more natural, more widespread. These kind of mound out. These are kind of one of my favorites. They're in the Anne Marie family, but instead of the pink tones to it, it has the yellow and a little bit of the white tones in it, and I think it's just a gorgeous little carpet flower. I've got to find a spot in my garden for them because I think they're gorgeous, and they're going to really do a nice contrast against this rock. So this is great. These are Florida friendly. They're not the native species, but they are a Florida friendly plant because they do so well here in Florida. So if you guys have a challenging situation like this and you are at wit's end with whether it's your HOA or maybe it's just a desire that you have to have more of a sustainable landscape, something that can withstand things and be more on the water saver side and not have to worry about fertilizing quite as much, a little less care in the garden and not have to worry about some of the other things that us tropical gardeners have to worry about. So if you're looking for a little bit of help with that, and if you're along the Florida area and you're maybe a little bit further outside of our installation zone, then we do have virtual consults. It's a one-on-one with me. It's a 1-hour session. It's something that we look at, walk through your property virtually, and then discuss some options as I put things down on the computer for us to kind of visualize and see. And then there's the next step where we have the CAD plan service. So if you're looking for just a master plan, a full design service, we have that as well. That is also a one-on-one with Bryce and myself, and we kind of work together to create renderings and landscape CAD. So that way that can be something that you can hand over to a landscape contractor or a nursery to help you source and get your materials, and it's pretty much a roadmap for that. So if you guys are looking for either one of those things and kind of some of the styles that you see here on YouTube, if that's your thing, then reach out to us. We'd be happy to work with you and kind of see if we can help you with your space. We'll be sure to put all of our contact information down in the show notes down below. So thank you so much for joining us. If you guys enjoyed today's video, then check out last week's video of our backyard garden tour. It was a fun garden tour of a lot of tropicals, and it was my personal style, my personal jungle-inspired backyard. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much. I will see you next week. Take care.